change your heart, change your life, change the planet.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Van Orden, and I've been getting a lot of requests to make a video about COVID-19. What do I think? What am I doing? And not that I'm an expert by any means. I'm definitely not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor or a virologist, but I've been studying this pretty intensively, so I've got some good ideas. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, do your own research, but I do want to answer some of the questions that are coming at me. And my friend in Sweden, who's on the line right here, she has some questions of her own, so I'm going to be having a conversation with her, and we're going to be addressing some of those questions. So here we go. So before we get into the specific details, I'd like to just talk generally about this. And from a much larger perspective, I do see this as a legitimate, I don't want to use the word problem or crisis, but a legitimate concern. And generally, how I'm responding to this is not with fear, not with panic, not in crisis mode, or not from a place of reactivity, but from a place of concern and consideration. I'm considering what I'm doing, and I'm concerned for my well-being and the well-being of other people, and taking actions in that regard. But I'm not afraid of this. I don't think it's something that people need to fear. I think it's something that people simply need to acknowledge as a reality right now, and that they need to take actions. Actions to protect themselves, actions to protect others. And you don't have to have fear to do that. You can be considerate and concerned and not be afraid. And that's how I'm going about this. So as we get into the specifics, that's the general idea in my approach right now. I'm not scared. I'm not worried. I'm not listening to the news about how many people have died here, there, or elsewhere. That's irrelevant to me taking steps to make sure that my well-being and that of others is of utmost importance. Okay. So your question, which was more specific, should I wear a mask? Should I wear gloves? Should I go to that level of concern when I'm out in public? Everything that I've come across in my research that's from a legitimate scientific person in the field is that yes, you should wear a mask of some kind. And that can be a bandana, it could be a scarf, it could be your shirt pulled up, a turtleneck, because it is in the air. And it's not just the larger droplets that most people think about. Like they say, oh, it's passed on through droplets when you sneeze or when you cough. That's true, but just like we can't see a virus because they are so tiny, we can't see all of the droplets. Like we think of droplet and we think of a large macroscopic object that you can see on a surface. But when you sneeze or cough, there are droplets of all different sizes. And some of them go down to a size where they can float on the air currents. They can stay in the air and have some buoyancy. So the larger drops are actually going to fall out, but there are smaller drops that will remain in the air for a bit. So is a bandana or a turtleneck, something like that, going to protect you from every single viral particle in the air? No. Is it going to protect you from most of them? Yeah. Is it as good as an N95 mask? No. But since you can't get N95 masks anywhere, and if you could, you should buy some and then give them to a hospital or to some health professionals. Don't hoard them for yourself. Give them to the people on the front lines if you can find them. What you can do is bandana, turtleneck, scarf, something to cover your mouth and nose. Get a pair of cheap safety glasses also, because your eyes are a vulnerable point of entry. And this is really only if you're in close proximity to someone. or if you're in an elevator that a lot of people use, that air is stale. Doors open and close, and there are drafts going up and down that elevator shaft that are often triggered by the doors opening and closing, the different pressure. So droplets that may have started to fall down to the elevator floor can get kicked back up again into the air, the really small particles. So if you're getting on an elevator, put something over your face. I'm not touching anything in public with my hands. I have a roll of paper towels. I have several. One right here for my studio. I have one in my car. I have one in the pantry at my house. The moment I walk in the door, there's paper towels. So that before I can wash my hands, I rip off a piece of paper towel and then touch doorknobs in the house. And touch chairs, whatever, if I'm going to take my shoes off. So I'm doing a really good job of not having my skin touching objects that are publicly accessible. And your clothing. You know, people think about their nose and mouth and eyes as access points. But somebody coughs or sneezes, and it goes down and it's on your shoes. It didn't go in your mouth, but you touch your shoes when you take your shoes off. And then you rub your nose, or you touch your eye or your mouth after you've taken your shoes off. So you have to think that, again, not to be paranoid, but simply to be considerate of how this is in the air, and it can be on your pants, it can be on your shoes, it can be on your jacket. It's not just on the doorknob. So when I get to a location, like when I came here to the studio today, I took off my public clothes, and the moment I finish that, I sanitize my hands. And then I go about my business. If I need to go out into the hallway to use the bathroom, I rip off a piece of paper towel, open the door with the paper towel, throw it away, use the bathroom, rip off another piece in the bathroom, open the door, get into my studio, throw it away, and then I still sanitize. Is that excessive? I don't think so. Does it slow me down in my day? Maybe 3 minutes overall. Big deal. And it kind of feels good, because there are moments of mindfulness, and this is one of the things that I'm doing throughout. It's giving me an opportunity not to just rush through life and be careless, because that's how most of us, including myself, goes through life most of the time. We're really careless. We're not really considerate of moments. We don't stop and pause and reflect and think about the value of this moment or the impact of this moment, whether it be negative or positive, or how we can turn a moment into a negative or a positive. So I'm using this as an opportunity to practice mindfulness, an opportunity to pause and slow down, and instead of being scared, to open up. So my stress levels are actually declining throughout because of all these moments where I'm interacting mindfully and with consideration. So, long answer to the question: use something to cover your mouth, nose, and eyes when you're out in public, and don't have your hands touch things. Sanitize them, or use soap to wash them throughout the day. Soap breaks down lipid membranes, and most cells have a lipid coat on them. And fat lipids, same thing. It's broken down by soap. That's one of the things that soap is designed to do, is to break down fat, which is why you put it on your greasy dishes, and then you can get the grease off because the soap has broken down the fat. So these cell membranes, or they're not actually cells, but the membrane or coating around the virus is made of lipids, and the soap will break that membrane, and then the DNA or RNA just falls out and can't do anything. So soap and water is really effective to clean yourself. You don't have to use sanitizer. So when I say sanitize, I'm often using soap and water. So one more thing about that, I'm thinking a lot about points of contact, and I had a conversation with a mail carrier this morning. As I was coming into the studio, he was loading up all the mailboxes down by the door, and he was wearing gloves and a mask. And I asked him, are you concerned because you're handling hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of mail that have come from all over the place every day? And we now know that the virus can live. It's not technically alive, but it can be viable, I think that's a better term, on surfaces for several days. So somebody mails a letter, 2 days later, it comes to your mailbox, and they had virus on their hands. Well, it's now in your house. And he said, yeah, he is concerned, but what surprises him is that he's the only mail carrier here in Bennington at the post office that's using a mask and gloves. And people are not taking it seriously. And then the mail carrier can become a carrier if they get infected. They're touching thousands of pieces of mail, and then they're delivering it to hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And if they become infected, that is now going into that many houses. So when you get your mail, don't touch it with your hands. Touch it with a glove or a paper towel. Look at it. Is it junk mail? Is it important? If it's important, okay, obviously you can open it, but sanitize your hands, wash your hands afterwards. Again, it's not about being afraid, it's not about being paranoid, it's about being considerate, which means to consider that this mail has come from somewhere that may have a greater number of infected people, and that your mail carrier themselves may be a transmitter or carrier of this virus. Or if you look at the mail with your gloves and there's nothing urgent that you need to do immediately, put it in a box with a little Post-it note on it that says the date that you received it, and then 10 days later open it, because the virus will most likely no longer be viable at that time. And so you can have little things with your mail and which date it came in, and then open it when it's 10 days old if it's not urgent. Okay, so those are my thoughts on transmission and being careful.